So let's look on the next page and you'll see the actual example using one source. So you can see here's my page right up here. That'd be my last name and page number. Here is my standard heading, right? And this is the title. You're going to use just the topic that you've chosen, a colon, and then the words annotated bibliography. So this is the format of the title. And then you're going to give me your first entry. And I would alphabetize all of my articles first so that I just start and I don't have to worry about trying to alphabetize them after. So I'm going to give my MLA works cited entry, right? Author, title of article, title of container. This is an academic journal, so I'm going to use volume and number, and then the year, and then my page numbers, right? This is a print article. It wasn't something that was online or accessed through a database, so there isn't anything after this. I just have to cite that. Then I'm going to come down and start a new paragraph, and it is going to be blocked indented so that it's even with the hanging indent. So here is this first sentence is my claim that I think the author is making. Dr. Torrance argues that all students should study the humanities in order to be well-rounded and enlightened citizens, no matter their discipline or type of college. That's what he is arguing in the paper, right? And this also includes the conclusions that he makes, right? If they do this, they'll be well-rounded and enlightened, right? This next section is the breakdown of how he uses logos, pathos, and ethos. So you can see he comes to these conclusions based on research by Harvard, Johns Hopkins, and the Pew Trust about the need for creativity and compassion in society in diverse areas, right? So this is, you know, these would be logos, right? The primary appeal used is logos, but Torrance also uses ethos when, one, citing his own experiences as a research scientist in this field, and two, the highly credible research institutions that he uses for his sources. He uses pathos to argue that, one, a lack of creativity and compassion can create harm between peoples of different backgrounds and experiences, and two, that the future of a strong job market in America is at risk. So there, right there, is my analysis of logos, pathos, and ethos. Just where does he use it, if he uses it, right? Now, the last part is then my analysis of any kind of persuasion that might be propaganda or fallacy. So I said, overall, he grounds his appeals in solid facts and information. However, his pathos verges on propaganda, appeal to fear, since he does not provide hard numbers to support just how big an effect to the job market the lack of creativity and compassion would be. Right? So that's what you're doing for every one of your sources. You're telling me what was the argument and conclusions, how did the author use the rhetorical triangle, and is there any evidence of propaganda or fallacy that we should be aware of when looking at this article? That's it, right? And if you look at this, I've got the footnotes here that tell you when each section is ended. All right, so there's your template. You can, I'm sorry, this is the example, the instruction sheet. When you open up the template, you're going to see that I tell you, here is your works cited entry, and I remind you about where you can find those things. And then here is what you're supposed to do in your evaluation, and I remind you of the separate sections, right? And then I repeat those so that you can just start typing and it's already formatted and indented correctly, right? Then at the end, and you need to delete this before you turn yours in if you use my template, you are, I've given you kind of the templates for the most common types of sources. Now you still need to check in your book because you may have additional information, but this is just generally what most people need. So here's if you've got a book. Here is if you have a magazine, a newspaper, or a print journal, all in print. This is if you have a non-periodical web article, and I've got a footnote that tells you that a periodical web article would be an online magazine, journal, or newspaper. So that's like the name of the actual magazine, and they may have print PDFs or HTML versions of their print articles, right? There are some online journals that do not have print sites, so they would still be a periodical web article. However, non-periodical web articles would be things like from CNN.com. They're not a magazine, a newspaper, or periodical. They're just a site that gives out information, right? The actual difference between a non-periodical web article and a magazine article online is oftentimes nothing at all. They are exactly the same. The only difference happens is if you've got a periodical article online that actually was originally printed. And in that case, you have to give all of the print information like you would here, and then afterwards you add the website info. So it's a lot like doing the online database. So if we look here, this is for EBSCO and Questia. Here in the brackets you would put, without the brackets, this is showing where to put it, whatever the works cited format would be for the particular source. So if it's a newspaper, a magazine, or a journal, you would cite that part of it. Then you would put a period, and then the second part of this would be documenting the type of database. So you'd give the database name, you would give the location, which is either going to be a DOI number or a URL, and that's it, right? For databases, we don't end with the accessed on date like we do for web articles, okay? So again, you can look in your textbook in the MLA section for more details, but this should be what most of you would need.